teeth in the manner of an angry jackal appeared from the other. "This way!" cried Smith, in a voice that rose almost to a shriek. "This way!" He led toward the room overhanging the steps. Off we dashed with panic swiftness, only to find that this retreat also was cut off. Dimly visible in the darkness was a group of yellow men, and despite the gloom the curved blades of the knives which they carried glittered menacingly. The passage was full of dacoits. Smith and I turned together. The trap was raised again, and the Burman who had helped to tie me was just scrambling up beside Dr. Fu-Manchu, who stood there watching us, a shadow, sinister figure. "The game's up, Petrie," muttered Smith. "It's been a long fight, but Fu-Manchu wins." "Not entirely!" I cried. I whipped the police whistle from my pocket and raised it to my lips. But brief as the interval had been, the dacoits were upon me. A sinewy brown arm shot over my shoulder and the whistle was dashed from my grasp. Then came a whirl of maelstrom fighting with Smith and myself ever sinking lower amid a whirlpool, as it seemed, of blood-lustful eyes, yellow fangs and gleaming blades. I had some vague idea that the rasping voice of Fu Manchu broke once through the turmoil, and when, with my wrist tied behind me, I emerged from the strife to find myself lying beside Smith in the passage, I could only assume that the Chinaman had ordered his bloody servants to take us alive, for saving numerous bruises and a few superficial cuts, I was unwounded. The place was utterly deserted again, and we two panting captives found ourselves alone with Dr. Fu Manchu. The scene was unforgettable, that dimly lighted passage, its extremities masked in shadow, and the tall, yellow-robed figure of the satanic Chinaman towering over us where we lay. He had recovered his habitual calm, and as I peered at him through the gloom I was impressed anew with the tremendous intellectual force of the man. He had the brow of a genius, the features of a born ruler, and even in that moment I could find time to search my memory and to discover that the face, saving the indescribable evil of its expression, was identical to that of Seti, the mighty pharaoh who lies in the Cairo Museum. Down the passage came leaping and gambolling the doctor's marmoset. Uttering its shrill whistling cry, it leaped onto his shoulder, clutched with its tiny fingers at the scanty, neutral-colored hair upon his crown, and bent forward, peering grotesquely into that still, dreadful face. Dr. Fu Manchu stroked the little creature, and crooned to it as a mother to her infant. Only this crooning and the labored breathing of Smith and myself broke that impressive stillness. Suddenly the guttural voice began. "You come at an opportune time, Mr. Commissioner Nayland Smith, and Dr. Petrie, at a time when the greatest man in China flatters me with a visit. In my absence from home a tremendous honor has been conferred upon me, and in the hour of this supreme honor, dishonor and calamity have befallen. For my services to China, the new China, the China of the future, I have been admitted to the Sublime Prince of the Sacred Order of the White Peacock." Warming to his discourse, he threw wide his arms, hurling the chattering marmoset fully 5 yards along the corridor. "O God of Cathay!" he cried sibilantly, "in what have I sinned that this catastrophe has been visited upon my head? Learn, my two dear friends, that the sacred white peacock, brought to these misty shores for my undying glory, has been lost to me. Death is the penalty of such a sacrilege. Death shall be my lot, since death I deserve." Covertly, Smith nudged me with his elbow. I knew what the nudge was designed to convey. He would remind me of his words, anent the childish trifles which sway the life of intellectual China. Personally, I was amazed. That Fu Manchu's anger, grief, sorrow and resignation were real, no one watching him and hearing his voice could doubt. He continued: "By one deed, and one deed alone, may I win a lighter punishment. By one deed, and the resignation of all my titles, all my lands, all my honors, may I merit to be spared to my work, which has only begun." I knew now that we were lost indeed. These were confidences which our grave should hold inviolate. He suddenly opened fully those blazing green eyes and directed their baneful glare upon Nayland Smith. "The Director of the Universe," he continued softly, "has relented toward me. Tonight you die. Tonight the arch enemy of our caste shall be no more. This is my offering, the price of redemption." My mind was working again, and actively. I managed to grasp the stupendous truth and the stupendous possibility. Dr. Fu-Manchu was in the act of clapping his hands when I spoke. "Stop!" I cried. He paused, and the weird film which sometimes became visible in his eyes now obscured their greenness, and lent him the appearance of a blind man. "Dr. Petrie," he said softly, "I shall always listen to you with respect." "I have an offer to make," I continued, seeking to steady my voice. "Give us our freedom, and I will restore your shattered honor. I will restore the sacred peacock." Dr. Fu-Manchu bent forward until his face was so close to mine that I could see the innumerable lines which, an intricate network, covered his yellow skin. "Speak!" he hissed. "You lift up my heart from a dark pit." "I can restore your white peacock," I said. "I, and I alone, know where it is." And I strove not to shrink from the face so close to mine. Upright shot the tall figure. High above his head Fu Manchu threw his arms, and a light of exultation gleamed in the now widely opened, cat-like eyes. "O God!" he screamed frenziedly. "O God of the Golden Age! Like a phoenix I arise from the ashes of myself!" He turned to me. "Quick! Quick! Make a bargain! End my suspense!" Smith stared at me like a man dazed, but ignoring him, I went on. "You will release me now, immediately. In another 10 minutes it will be too late. My friend will remain. One of your servants can accompany me and give the signal when I return with the peacock. Mr. Nayland Smith and yourself, or another, will join me at the corner of the street where the raid took place last night. We shall then give you 10 minutes' grace, after which we shall take whatever steps we choose." "Agreed!" cried Fu Manchu. "I ask but one thing from an Englishman your word of honor." "I give it." "I also," said Smith hoarsely. 10 minutes later, Nayland Smith and I, standing beside the cab, whose lights gleamed yellowly through the mist, exchanged a struggling, frightened bird for our lives, capitulated with the enemy of the white race. With characteristic audacity, and characteristic trust in the British sense of honor, Dr. Fu Manchu came in person with Nayland Smith, in response to the wailing signal of the dacoit who had accompanied me. No word was spoken, save that the cabman suppressed a curse of amazement, and the Chinaman, his sinister servant at his elbow, bowed low, and left us, surely to the mocking laughter of the gods. Chapter 13. Recording by Elaine Twaddle, Sterling, Ontario.